So Spencer Brown, the manager of Joseph Parker, among many other fighters, has named 3 potential opponents for his charge, possibly before the end of the year. He said to Boxing News, "I think he'll defend his interim title before Christmas. He'll have to because he'll have to get a fight in. And I think he'll fight an English guy. I think he'll fight one of the top level English guys, whether it's Daniel Dubois, whether it's Fabio Wardley. There's quite a few to choose from at the moment. But one of those top guys, it might be Derek Chisora. He's got himself in a great place." Now, what do Fabio Wardley and Derek Chisora have in common? They're both ranked in the highest position in different sanctioning bodies. But Joseph Parker is also ranked in the highest position. He's interim champion. Fabio Wardley's interim champion. So what this means is Joseph Parker can't actually gain anything by way of rankings by beating a Fabio Wardley or a Derek Chisora or a Daniel Dubois. We don't know where Dubois is going to be ranked now after his loss to Usyk. So is this something which the WBO are going to mandate, that Joseph Parker has to defend his interim position? Is that what it is? Or is it just Joseph Parker insisting that he gets out and he doesn't care who it is? Now, people are rightly upset that Joseph Parker isn't getting his shot at Alexander Usyk. He definitely deserves it. I did either a video or a live stream a few weeks ago saying that Usyk should be stripped, and you guys know there are a few people around who are bigger advocates for Alexander Usyk as a heavyweight champion and just a boxing great in general for all he's done, for rescuing the heavyweight division from all the politics and nonsense that certain promoters and fighters were perpetuating. So I've got the absolute maximum respect for Usyk, but fair is fair. Joseph Parker deserves his shot. So how about this? And in fact, before we get to that, there's also a tweet put out here. In fact, what do you call them now that it's no longer called Twitter? Do you still call them tweets? Guess we'll use the legacy name of tweets. And this particular account is saying that Spencer Brown, because it says at the bottom via Spencer Brown, is saying that Parker Wardley is reportedly being planned for October. If the deal is finalized, the fight is expected to take place at the O2 Arena. That's interesting. I haven't seen any source myself, primary source from Spencer Brown saying this. I'm not saying there isn't one. I'm just saying I didn't personally find one. But yeah, what do you guys think of Joseph Parker, Fabio Wardley in October potentially? If the vacant WBO heavyweight title was on the line, that'd make it all the more tasty, right? But truth be told, even though from a ranking perspective it's a good matchup, I can't help thinking, and I don't know if I'm alone here, that this is a pretty easy fight for Joseph Parker. What do you guys reckon? Surely Parker boxes Wardley's head off. Am I buzzing? What do you guys think in the chat? Jay's Crep says that would be a decent scrap. Okay, Revelation TV says a Jagba versus Sanchez 2 IBF eliminated confirmed. Samil says terrible mismatch. Underground says Parker by KO. Askip says Parker by wide decision. Bongo says yes, but Wardley is dangerous and will not lie down. He definitely won't lie down, but Parker's better than Justice Uni. He's certainly more durable as well. I think he's bigger, stronger. I think he's better than Justice Uni all round. More experienced, hits harder. And like I say, he takes a better shot. So I've got Parker all day long over Fabio Wardley. But then again, Fabio Wardley has proven me wrong a couple times in the past. He's pulled a massive shot out the bag to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Would he be able to do it against Parker? I have my doubts. Because again, Parker is very durable. Yeah, he got stopped by Joe Joyce. That's the only time he's been stopped. Didn't get stopped by Dylan White. Didn't get stopped by Anthony Joshua. Didn't get stopped by Jelly Zhang. Didn't get stopped by Deontay Wilder. Didn't get stopped by Andy Ruiz. Parker's durable. He's been down a few times, yeah, but he normally gets up and finishes the contest. As he did against Derek Chisora in their first fight. He was dropped in the first, 10, 15 seconds of the bout? You guys remember that? Regular says, good evening, Parker will win. Enjoy your flight. Yeah, Parker definitely does have a chin. Danny North says, easy, Parker win. Somebody saying R.I.P. Purple Aki. Yeah, somebody mentioned that he passed away yesterday. Is it even true, though? That's right, Carlton Palmer. The guys who fought Lennox Lewis always remarked about how strong he was, including Shannon Briggs recently. In the past couple of years, he did an interview where he said what stood out to him in the Lennox Lewis fight was just his physical strength. He said bumping into Lewis in the ring was like hitting a brick wall. The guy was just unbelievably physically strong, and that in itself would tire you out when you fought Lennox Lewis. Was the physical contact when you bump into him and he's pushing you back and all this kind of stuff, manhandling you. He was just tremendously physically strong. Ryan Emer says, pressure fighters are Parker's kryptonite. That's why I feel Dubois was all wrong for Parker. I was picking Dubois to beat Parker as well. But Dubois has shown that chink in his armor so many times now, it's going to give all future opponents a hell of a lot of encouragement when they're in there with him. When they're under heavy fire, thinking they can outlast him somehow, turn the tables. Do you know what I mean? So I might have to reassess who I think would beat, or who I think would win in a Daniel Dubois-Joseph Parker fight now. The place says it's a 50-50 in my opinion. Fabio's advantage is his power and his heart. His decent skills will complement. Okay. The place thinks it's a 50-50 between Parker and Wardley. Ed LLB says he was dropped by Zhang. That's right, he was. And he got up to win. Isaac says, how do I see a fight between Itama and Teramawana? Well, we need to see more of them for me to be able to make a confident assessment. But Teramawana was interviewed next to his promoter Eddie Hearn a few days ago. And he was asked about fighting Moses Itama. And he said, oh yeah, that'll be a good fight for the future. A couple of years down the line. Words to that effect. So he's not looking to fight Itama anytime soon. Not that Itama's looking to fight him anytime soon either, but that's a tasty fight at some stage. Teramawana, a very big, strong, powerful guy, very aggressive. Yeah, he and Itama might be something very special. Perhaps that'll be the rivalry over the next few years if both of the guys, both those guys ascend to the top of the division. Action Popcast says, I had Parker taking Danny's crayons late. Kyle says, Henry Akinwande was manhandling Lewis. Nah, he wasn't manhandling Lewis. Lewis was actually manhandling him. And Akinwande was holding on for dear life as Lewis was manhandling him. I mean, he was doing a fairly good job of avoiding Lewis's shots because Lewis was basically pushing him back and trying to force the fight. But Akinwande was like wrapping him up at every opportunity and Lewis was like wrestling around. It was an ugly, ugly, ugly fight. in which Akim One Day's own team, I think it was Don Turner, was training Akim One Day for that fight. Even he turned on him like, yo, what you doing? Fight. Stop holding. Get out there and fight. Akim One Day refused. He had some kind of, I want to say, panic attack that night. That's what happened to Henry Akim One. He basically had a panic attack in there. He didn't want no parts of Lennox Lewis, and he got himself disqualified. Big up Harold Protagonist in the chat. Yes, yes. Big up Afro Jam. GMS Nightmare says, would Foreman beat Lewis? Personally, I don't think so. But that's one man's opinion. Unless we got a time machine, none of us will ever find out the truth. Action Popcast says, I would say it's too soon for a Tama to fight Parker. Give the lad time. I would agree. Big up James Wood in the chat. He's also saying, R.I.P. Purple Aki. I never knew Purple Aki was this popular. It's like I was saying in yesterday's stream, Purple Aki really missed the opportunity to become the UK version of Fleece Johnson. Because Fleece Johnson was a booty bandit in prison in the United States. And he became a viral sensation by way of some news special where they were in prison and they interviewed him. And he talked about how much he liked booty and, you know, he was talking all this Diddy type stuff. And, you know, warning young men, if they are unfortunate enough to be locked up with him, what they can expect to happen to them if he catches them. But anyway, since coming out, he must be in his 60s now, Fleece Johnson. He's become a YouTuber. And he's on all sorts of different podcasts and Pop the Balloon shows. It's a madness. So Fleece Johnson has become bigger now than he ever was. Pause. Purple Aki missed the opportunity to do something similar. Big up James Wood. He said, just dipping in. We'll catch up tomorrow. 400 quid worth of Chinese on the table. Bosh. Okay. So you got Johnny Fisher Sr. round for dinner. Big up James Wood. The Alexander Usyk of kitchen fitters. You know how it goes. Is Sheffield Massive in the house? Carlton Palmer says, Terry Moana Jr. looks decent, but he's fought pure dross so far. Can't argue with that. I mean, Terry Moana's promise really comes from the performance he put in last time he fought Bakadir Jalilov in the amateurs. Because he gave it a good go. And he was actually stopped by Jalilov in a previous amateur bout. I didn't actually see the first bout, though, if that was their first bout. But it was certainly the previous bout they had. He was stopped by Jalilov. I don't know if it was a knockout or he got hurt or what it was. But in the last Jalilov bout he had, he took Jalilov's power very well. That was impressive. And he showed, again, rough, tough, physical strength and what have you. So Terry Moana is definitely an interesting addition to the heavyweight ranks. And I look forward to seeing him in there against whoever. Talma, any of the top guys. And out of curiosity, how did Purple Aki die? Like, what happened? I don't think he was that old, was he? Afro Jam says, Fleece admitted that shtick about the scene wasn't real. He was a bandit. But the way he was talking in the interview, he was asked to scare the kids. Yeah, that's what he claims. But then I saw Vlad in one of his interviews outright accusing Fleece of taking booty in prison. He says he's seen paperwork that proves that Fleece was taking booty. And that's why he didn't have Fleece on his channel. Because apparently they were going to do the interview. But then Vlad says he came across some paperwork that showed, no, Fleece was actually taking booty in there. So, I don't know. If that's not true, then Fleece has got a bag right there suing Vlad for defamation of character, right? But that was several months ago. I'm not aware if that Vlad interview's still up. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. Okay, Purpleaki was 65. Shout out to Jelly Mo for the super chat. He says, with Purpleaki gone, I've now run out of excuses for avoiding the gym. That's a great comment. That's a great comment by Jelly Mo. You got no excuse to stay skinny now, right? Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Okay. Carlton Palmer says paperwork, it's all documented. Now, well, you can catch charges in prison. That's what Vlad claims. That Fleece caught charges in prison, overtaking booty, and he claims he's seen the paperwork. And in fact, that's Fleece's favorite saying. It's documented. You know how Fleece talks. It's documented. Iron says he's probably squeezing Hulk. He's talking about Purpleaki now. He's probably squeezing Hulk Hogan's biceps in hell. Afro Jam says if Purpleaki had asked you, would you beat Aki down 1,000,000%? I would have took off on him. Like, what? Man would have cracked his jaw quick time. Trying to come with some funny vibe. What? Action Popcast says, would you say Atamo versus Adelaide would be a good fight? I call Moses to win, but could be entertaining. Yeah, I think that could be entertaining. I think that could be very entertaining. I reckon Atamo would win too, but yeah, that's an entertaining fight as long as it lasts. A big up place, he says, have a good weekend, Hatman. I personally don't think Wardley's nose will hold up. Yeah, in fact, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Let's get Simon Kagwangela up on screen, given the subject matter at the moment. Huh? Exactamundo says the many lies of Hulk Hogan are actually dead funny vids. Well, he's a wrestler. You know, wrestlers are actors, and actors, especially wrestlers, most of them just lie constantly in interviews, from what I've seen. All them old WWE and WWF guys, they're all just constantly lying and exaggerating and embellishing. And I think it's just like a culture within the wrestling fraternity. They just lie all the time and exaggerate stuff and embellish and whatnot. Place says, sorry guys, but Adelaide would get absolutely annihilated by Dubois. He was actually calling that fight on the other day. Adelaide. He was saying he'd like to fight Dubois. He said they used to spar, and the spars were intense, and he'd like to fight Dubois. I tell you what, Dubois is a much better technical boxer. He's a lot more accomplished than Adelaide. I mean, look at what Dubois did to Hrgovic compared to Adelaide, right? Nevertheless, one thing I can give Adelaide over Dubois is heart. He's definitely got more heart than Daniel Dubois, without a shadow of a doubt. Big up Matt for the super chat. He says Wardley versus Parker is impossible next. Okay. Would you care to elaborate, Matt? Why can it not happen next? Big up Matt. Osaka Castle says, Hulk claimed Elvis Presley was a fan of him despite becoming a professional wrestler after Elvis died. That's a typical wrestler lie. That's the kind of things that they say, you know? Yeah, they also add a couple inches to their height. 100% wrestlers just do that as standard. I'm pretty sure the owners of the wrestling organizations tell the wrestlers to do it, even if the wrestlers don't want to do it themselves. They always, add a couple inches onto their height. Striker says Hogan took lying to another level. Big up Matt for the super chat. He says Parker's team wouldn't dare Usyk or Adjit or Dubois. You're saying Parker's team wouldn't dare fight Wardley? So you think Wardley is dangerous for Parker? Okay. Or have I misinterpreted your comment there? Because personally, I think Parker outboxes Fabio Wardley easily. I personally think it's an easy fight for Joseph Parker. Okay, Matt thinks that Wardley is too dangerous. The risk-reward, Matt thinks the risk-reward is not good. Okay. I reckon a lot of it depends on the money. Well, obviously risk-reward it would, right? Matt says Parker gets caught in that fight. All right? But Parker can take a shot. I don't think Wardley hits as hard as Zhang. And Parker took his punch, got off the floor and won. Tony says, I think Triple D will go against Caballero. You think that fight's going to happen? Last I heard, they're looking to put Caballero in basically a stay busy fight in Germany. That's the last I heard on the Caballero front. Austin Spears says, I got 80-20 to Parker. Yeah, I have Parker a pretty heavy favorite over Fabio Wardley if that fight gets made. Gossa says, I hope Dubois doesn't fight old man Pulev. Everybody's going to be gunning for Pulev, but it would seem at the moment that the Hunter Pulev fight is back on. And by the way, Michael Hunter is totally refuting the idea that the fight between himself and Jarrell Miller fell through because of the situation with Don King. He says that's total cap. He says the reason the fight fell through is because of Jarrell Miller's promotional situation with Dimitri Salita, not because of any issue with Don King. And the way he explained it, I think it was a maybe Seconds Out interview that Hunter did. The way he explained it, he said that the issue with Don King was all sorted. And there was no real issue to begin with. He said Don King kept sending cease and desist, but when they asked Don King to send a contract to prove that Michael Hunter was under contract with him, Don King refused to send a contract, Michael Hunter inferring that there is no contract. And interestingly, if you look at the public statements that Don King put up on his Instagram page, everything he said in those statements was about how the WBA were being violated by the people that wanted to put on Jarrell Miller versus Michael Hunter. He wasn't saying that he himself was being violated contractually. He kept saying the WBA, they're not respecting the WBA. And that's a strange thing to keep saying if you've got a strong legal position over a fighter. Do you know what I mean? Why you keep talking about, Don King's senile now, so maybe it's that, right? But then again, is he really the one writing the social media posts? I doubt it. So who knows? what the truth is as far as why that Michael Hunter, Jeru Miller fight fell through. But Hunter is adamant that he had nothing to do with him and the Don King situation. He said it had to do with Jeru Miller and Demetrius Salita, who have been at loggerheads for a couple of years now. At one point, Salita was suing Jeru Miller for like $1 million, $2 million, something like that. I don't know if that was even resolved. Evil Uncle Phil says, Miller, still not free of Salita. That's peak. Yeah, it's crazy, right? If it's the case. Kyle says, Don is senile. Who runs the promotion? Probably his son. I would imagine his son. Because his son was involved in the promotion, their promotional company for decades. Been involved for a long time, the son. Any guy says, what do you think of that Rampage Jackson thing? Okay, so I've had time to actually watch the video. I don't quite know what to make of it. So some guy cracked a beer can over his head. And then the guy's a wrestler, so he's, it's just, we were acting, we were in character and this and that. I thought you understood. And he apologized because Rampage Jackson's son, Roger Jackson, wasn't amused. He wasn't happy. And they seemed to piece it up. But then while the guy was in the ring having a wrestling match, Roger Jackson jumped into the ring, slammed the guy so he was unconscious, and then started jumped on top, started pounding his face. Pause. But did something happen in between those two incidents? That's the question I'm asking. Because as the public, we've only seen the two incidents, right? We've seen the situation with a beer can outside, and then we saw the assault committed by Roger Jackson in the ring during a wrestling match. But did something happen in between those two incidents? Was something said, or I don't know. Kieran Malcolm says, I think he sued him for $5 million, which would have been his purse for AJ. I guess he's talking about Jeru Miller being sued by Demetrius Salita. Was it $5 million? That's crazy. Exactamundo says, Hulk Hogan wrote a song about giving a Make-A-Wish kid that he given a ticket to see him wrestle SummerSlam at Wembley 92, but who sadly died. Hogan never wrestled SummerSlam 92. To play devil's advocate, though, he might have got the year mixed up, no? Don't get it twisted. Hulk Hogan was telling hella lies, but just playing devil's advocate on that one. You can easily, the kind of lifestyle that wrestlers live and the amount of shows they do, you could easily get the years mixed up. Big up Gaz for the super chat. He says, more brutal KO, Ruddock Dokes or Mercer Morrison? For me, Mercer Morrison. How about you? What do you think, Gaz? But for me, Mercer Morrison was more brutal. That was crazy. It's like the referee had something against Morrison. I mean, all the extra shots he let him take. That was a madness. Okay, Exactamundo says, Roger was knocked out during a live stream while sparring a few days earlier to the wrestling incident. I think his ego was bruised and the assault was him showing everyone how tough he is. Roz B says, even if something was said, it's still attempted murder, got to be locked up. Well, it's still a bizarre thing to do, isn't it? I mean, if you're going to assault somebody to that extent, why would you do it live on camera? I mean, how are you going to get away with that one? So it was a bizarre thing to do. Very bizarre. in front of a big audience on camera. Like, what on earth is all that about? I guess he's not the full biscuit. Okay, Grime says, apparently the promoter told him he could get his lick back in the ring and told him to double leg and punch him until he gets pulled off. For real? What is the name of that guy who Roger Jackson did it to? Is he called Crazy something? Psycho, is it Psycho Steve? Is that his name? Maybe the promoter didn't like him. And that's why he permitted that to happen. I don't know. Psycho Stu. Okay. Psycho Stu. Psycho Stu. I mean, that probably says a lot about him, to be fair. Exactamundo says, if that's true, the promoter should be liable too, 100%. Like I say, it's a bizarre incident. Why would you do that in front of an audience on camera? You know, it's crazy. Man's not the full biscuit. Osaka Castle says, which wrestler had the best Hollywood acting career? You probably have to say The Rock, innit? You probably have to say The Rock. Am I wrong? Surely it's got to be The Rock. He had the best, most successful in terms of money and what have you, Hollywood career. Any of you guys got a different name rather than The Rock? Afro Jam says The Rock, then Batista. Yeah, Batista's had a good career too. He's been in a lot of stuff. He was in The Avengers. He was in what's the other one called? Guardians of the Galaxy. He was in Blade Runner. He's been in a lot of stuff. A lot of action movies and whatnot. I would agree with that. Batista is a better actor, but no more successful. Yeah, Batista's pretty good. Oh yeah, he was in June as well. Yeah, he was good in that. Action Popcast says Batista was in a Bond film as well. Exactamundo talking about Mr. Nanny and Suburban Commando with Hulk Hogan. Yeah, Hulk Hogan's Hollywood career was pretty horrible, bro. Pretty horrible. What was that movie that he did with Zeus? With Tiny, is it Tiny Lister? Back in the days, we always used to know him as Zeus from that wrestling movie with Hulk Hogan. What was that called? No Holds Barred. Yeah. And weirdly, how weird is this, right? Zeus, aka, I think his real name is Tiny Lister. I'm not sure what his first name is, but I guess they called him Tiny, right? How weird is this? Zeus, Tiny Lister, yeah. Debo from Friday. I know people, you know, another generation also call him Debo. His face looks so similar to Mini-Me from Austin Powers. Obviously, one of them's white and the other one's black, but look at like the shape of his face, his eyes, his features. I'm telling you, he's a mad one. Debo slyly looked kind of similar in the face to Mini-Me from Austin Powers. I can see it anyway. Yo, it's like the eyes or something, the shape of the face. It looks like Mini-Me. That's right, Action Popcast. He's quoting Friday, get knocked out like your dad used to, yeah, like your father used to. Debo coming through with the bike with a squeaky wheel. Rubbing everybody's chain. Osaka Castle says Randy Savage was in Spider-Man. What happened to wrestlers all having like crazy voices? You know, the old school wrestlers always used to come with crazy voices, you know? It's like the new wrestlers never do, or maybe I'm just not paying attention. Because the Macho King, oh yeah. We do all that, innit? Crazy voice. Even the Ultimate Warrior had a crazy voice. The Macho King Randy Savage, yeah. We do all that. Zaptamundo says cream of the crop. Ooh, yeah. God, I'm surprised he didn't like give himself an aneurysm or something doing all that, bro. I'm physically straining myself doing the voice. Kira Malcolm says the Macho Man Randy Savage is on point. Striker says he talked like that in real life. Or did he just stay in character in real life? Because some of them guys would stay in character. In fact, I saw, you know, Hulk Hogan's always like talking smack about other wrestlers in interviews. And Hulk Hogan and Macho Man had a beef, innit? Like a real life beef. And Hulk Hogan, I swear he said something like, Macho Man is constantly in character all the time. Like even off, you know, outside of the professional environment, he's just constantly in character doing the voice and it's just weird. Then again, Hulk Hogan is known to lie and embellish, so. Yeah, Hulk Hogan would call everyone brother, that's right. Jay says, hey man, who are some of your favorite UK rappers past or present? But I don't really listen to any rap these days. I mean, the odd tune here or there. For example, I listened to, or I skimmed through Ghostface's new album, Supreme Clientele 2, and didn't think much of it. As far as UK rappers, obviously including grime, you know, any kind of BPM genre. Some of my favorites back in the day were Kalashnikov, Kano, and Swiss from So Solid. At least on the mixtape / album he released called Pain and Music. He was fire on there. So, yeah, that's 3 of them. Kalashnikov, Swiss, and Kano. Wrestling used to be great, says Osaka Castle. That's a whole fact. Craig Welsh Boxer says, who remembers Sway? This Is My Demo was a great album. Yeah, Sway basically had 1 year where he was big, then he disappeared. Maybe he got into other sorts of business and did something else with his life, I'm not sure. But I remember there being funny skits on the album. Like these funny Ghanaian African skits. Yeah. Oh, is that right, Kyle? He says Wretch 32 is Vidal's cousin. That's interesting. I've always felt like Wretch 32 he's very, very similar to Swiss as a rapper, minus the charisma. I don't know, like Wretch is technically a good rapper, but there's just something missing there for me. I've never liked his music somehow. I've never liked his bars, and even though, like I say, he's good from a technical perspective, but just, I don't know. Just find him hard to listen to. He's like Swiss, but without the charisma, without the flair of Swiss. Oh, damn. President Brush says Sway got cancer after that, then beat it. For real? Oh, Craig Welsh Boxer says Sway moved to Ghana around 2007. Jack Henderson says, Hatman, your career reviews have been brilliant. Why not do a Canelo review in the lead up to the Crawford fight? Because I tend to do career reviews after the fighter is retired. Carlton Palmer agrees. He says, yeah, I find Wretch a bit dry. Yeah, same for me. I just find him, yeah, like you say, dry. Bit dry, man. We got 181 concurrent viewers, only 51 likes. Can we get like 80 likes? Thank you in advance. Everyone just stick a like on the stream. Much appreciated. It really helps these streams get seen, bumps them up in suggested videos and search results and whatnot. Shout out to everybody locked in. JR says, I like your movie review format. End of the year, definitely need another one. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of movies this year, so I can definitely do that. Samil says, Hatman, thoughts on the Nas song Uchi Wally? I like the beat, but other than that, I thought it was trash. Yeah, I thought Uchi Wally was trash. It was a cool beat, but other than that, dead. What's my favorite all-time movie? Couldn't tell you a favorite all-time movie because there are too many movies that I like. There are too many. Far too many to give you one. Afro Jam says, have you heard about Glanton and Tabiti having a card in Nigeria for Nigerian independence? Well, I heard that Glanton's going to be fighting Rocky Fielding of all people. How random is that? Brandon Glanton versus Rocky Fielding in Nigeria. Rocky Fielding hasn't fought for what, a couple years, and he was retired? And he's a light heavyweight / super middleweight? Mad. Samil says, how about Rewind by Nas? That was the best lyrical track ever. I certainly wouldn't call it the best lyrical track ever, but it's a cool track. Inspired by the movie Memento. Directed by Chris Nolan. Starring Guy Pearce. So yeah, he basically just took the concept from Memento and put it into a rap form. Big up Josh Petty for the super chat. He says, congrats on 90K Hatman. Road to 1 million. Samil says, most creative, I mean. I'm not even sure it's the most creative. There have been so many crazy creative tracks over the years, you know? Because like I say, he lifted that concept from a movie. There have been so many creative tracks. I mean, Nas has done other creative tracks. Didn't he do one track where it's about the journey of a gun in the hood being passed from one person to the next? And many other rappers have done all sorts of creative tracks over the decades. Ismail says, and big up Josh Petty again, by the way. Gave you power, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one about the gun. That's right. Ismail says, Hatman, who won Devilman versus Skepta? I haven't been following the beef. But I did see a diss track the other day, or hear a diss track the other day, by Trim going at Giggs. I guess Giggs was telling those grime rappers not to talk about rap. So maybe Trim took offense and he's come out and started taking shots at Giggs. Yeah, that's the one that Samir was talking about, Rich Franklin, the one where he raps the story backwards. That's Rewind. That's the one which is inspired by the movie Memento. And Memento has got several characters in it from The Matrix. The woman who plays Trinity. The guy that plays Cypher. And there might be somebody else as well. But the main character, the star, is Guy Pearce. That is his name, right? Guy Pearce? Osaka Castle says Chip did a diss of Stormzy. I can't take Chip seriously. And I've never liked Stormzy. Yeah, Giggs will never live down the Diddy link up. You know, I always liked Killer Priest. When it comes to like deep, mind-bending rhymes, I always liked Killer Priest. Because he goes all the way out there into the metaphysical. One of the most metaphysical tracks I've ever heard in my life. And I still love the track. It's just a shame that the production techniques were primitive even for back then. The track must have come out in 98, 97, 98 when Killer Priest dropped his debut album, Heavy Mental. I wish they could like remaster that track. But the track is called Atoms to Atoms. Atoms to Atoms. It's on YouTube. Have a listen to it. I love that track. I love the vibe of it. And his rhyme, basically, he is talking about the seeding of life on Earth. So he takes you on a journey from the seeding of life on Earth all the way through history to the present day. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's a crazy track. Ed Ellaby says, rate Beanie Sigel, Feel It in the Air out of 10. I haven't listened to that track for so many years, I can't even remember the bars. But what I can tell you about Beanie Sigel is that Beanie Sigel was fire when he was snapping. You know, Americans have got this term snapping. Coming out with punchlines and basically battle raps, if you want to call them battle raps, right? Gun-toting battle raps. That's when Beanie Sigel is in his lane and that's when he's fire. But when he tries to do all the other stuff, sound deep, and it just doesn't really work for me. It kind of sounds mediocre. But when he's just spitting fire at somebody, he was an animal. The only guy, as far as I'm concerned, to ever get the best of Jadakiss was Beanie Sigel. Yo, he tore Jadakiss up. Pause. The Broad Street Bully, that's right. Garza says, Hatman, who did you prefer, Biggie Smalls or Tupac? I was never really a big fan of either, but I'd always say Biggie over Tupac. President Brush says, do you know about Cass is Dead? I know about him, I've never really got into his music. I remember somebody commented that, you know, after listening to some of my music that I sounded like Cass is Dead. And I'm like, who the hell's Cass is Dead? I had to go look him up. Shout out to George for the super chat. He says, hard to believe that John Cena is almost 50. He's 48. Well, he is balding. You do see that big bald patch. And the roids will help, you know, keep the physique together. Big up George the Last Patriot. I always like John Cena's "You Can't See Me" thing, you know, with the hand and that. He said he got that off a member of G Unit. "You Can't See Me." I forget which member of G Unit it was, but he said he got it off him. Was it Tony Yayo? Okay. Yeah, I was told by somebody, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I was told by somebody that Cass is Dead is actually the one who writes and maybe performs the rhymes for Pete and Baz. I was told that's Cass is Dead behind Pete and Baz. He put that whole thing together and he writes all those rhymes and everything. Harold Protagonist says thoughts on Cannabis. He was hot for about 5 minutes, but I didn't like any of his albums. He had some good features back in the days, you know. On LL Cool J 54321, where the beef started with LL Cool J on that track. Actually, was it an LL? Yeah, it was an LL Cool J track, but it was featuring Method Man and Redman and a bunch of other Def Jam artists. DMX was on it. Or was that one version of it? Because there might have been several versions. But anyway, yeah, Cannabis had some good features. A couple of good tracks on the album, on his first album, but overall, Kyle says, have you seen the Cannabis rap battle? Are you talking about the one he had with Cassidy? That was horrible. Was it Cassidy he had a rap battle with where Cannabis just got chewed up and spat out? Ahmed says, did you ever rate Nas? Nas is cool, but I was never really like amazed by Nas. Do you know what I mean? He was cool. So I like Eminem. I liked Eminem's first album. Well, not first album. It's actually his second album, but it was the first album that anyone paid any attention to. The Slim Shady LP. Mark says, Cannabis Battle Disaster. Is that who it was? Okay, maybe I'm getting the Disaster Cassidy battle mixed up. Because Cassidy battled Disaster as well, right? Yeah, Cannabis Disaster. And Cannabis got chewed up either way. I just remember him standing there with a dumb look on his face with some shades on and he just was getting chewed up. Is this live shot in live shots of Cambodia? No, it's definitely not Cambodia. It's Costa Rica. Fernie G says, ever listen to Big L? Hatman, he's a legend here in the States. Of course. Big L was like the punchline king. You know? Where he says, I got the wild style, always been a foul child. My guns go boom, boom, and your guns go pow, pow. JR says, how long before you leave Costa Rica? A matter of weeks. That's right, Harold Protagonist knows the song. Put it on by Big L. I got chicks that make that Tony Braxton look like Whoopi. Warren Williams says, I missed the start of the video, so what do you think of this fight? Is it Frank's way of making each other soft so Moses can fly in and beat the winner? I don't think it's that, if the fight gets made, because it's not official or anything. It's just being discussed. I think Joseph Parker wins comfortably against Fabio Wardley. Probably widely outboxes him, maybe even stops him late. Kyle says Jay-Z is kind of overrated. Even though I don't like Jay-Z as a person and what he represents and all that kind of stuff, truth be told, I like more of Jay-Z's music than Nas's music. Just on an artistic bars type level. So for example, and here's a crazy thing, right? Jay-Z did a track with Beanie Siegel. I think it was on Beanie Siegel's first album or one of his early albums. Maybe his first album with Rockefeller Records. He did a track with Beanie Siegel called Still Got Love For You. And both guys were rapping about growing up with an absentee father. All right? Beanie Siegel's verse was Jay-Z's verse was actually really good. Like really touching. It made me feel like I didn't grow up with a dad, even though I did. That's how touching it was. I was like, damn. Jay-Z's verse on that track, yeah, that's cold. Simon Jones says, Big L ripped Jay-Z apart, bruv. Yeah, he did on that freestyle. Big L, before he was red rummed, was about to sign with Jay-Z, actually, with Rockefeller. He was about to sign with him. But then his life got cut short. Big up President Brush, yes. If we can hit the likes, people, much appreciated. Dominic Avery talking about Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim. Old school. What's my beef with Maya Jama? I got no beef with Maya Jama. I don't pay any attention to Maya Jama. Pick up George, the Last Patriot, for the super chat. He says, is there a reason why so many Japanese fighters dying? Is that their samurai spirit is so much stronger than their bodies? Or is there another reason? It's a good question, because a couple of them died recently, right, on the same show. Could it be a safety issue? It's probably a combination of different factors. But as you say, Japanese fighters typically are ridiculously brave. And it's always been that way, as long as I've been watching boxing. Even like lowly ranked Japanese fighters, you know, guys who are not that good, will show an unusual amount of heart and fighting spirit. So, yeah, when you combine that type of heart, that type of fighting spirit with, you know, other issues, dehydration, maybe certain safety protocols not being in place, and also there's a bad luck element to it, right? Boxing is an inherently dangerous sport. So you combine all those factors and it results in those type of tragedies. Shout out to George, the Last Patriot, for the super chat. Yeah, it's a shame. Iron 22 says honor culture. That's right. I mean, just look at how the Japanese fought in World War II. In the Pacific, right? Against the Americans. The Japanese were ferocious, bro. The kamikaze pilots. They had suicide cults in the Japanese military. And they were all under the control of Emperor Hirohito, who was like a god to many of the Japanese troops. They did whatever he commanded them to do, even if it meant, flying planes into battleships and aircraft carriers. Samil says, Hatman, did you listen to the Fourth Chamber by Jizza? The beat and Jizza's verse was so good while blazed. Yeah, I listened to all the Wu-Tang albums from the 90s. After the year 2000, I've listened to some, but not others, because the Wu-Tang are pretty much rubbish now. But yeah, I always loved Liquid Swords. It was one of my favorite Wu-Tang albums, if not my very favorite, next to 36 Chambers. I love the dark, synth-laden production on Liquid Swords. Jazz says, did the East Asian people descend from the Khoisan? Very possibly. There's certainly nothing in the genetic record to suggest it was the other way around. Because the Khoisan are the oldest phenotype in the world, according to geneticists. There's no older phenotype or genotype in the world than the Khoisan. So, yeah, you would imagine that the Oriental people came from them. And by the way, one thing I just discovered over the past few months is that the Khoisan people, that phenotype, right, of African, where their skin is lighter than other Africans and they've got those kind of squint eyes and all that, they actually originate not from South Africa. They've lived in Southern Africa for thousands of years, but they apparently originate, according to the genetic research, they apparently originate in East Africa, in Tanzania, around that kind of area, even up as far as Ethiopia, that region. That's where apparently that phenotype, that Khoisan phenotype, originates from, East Africa. Carlton Palmer says, Liquid Swords definitely the best Wu-Tang album. It's a great album. Love the dark atmosphere. The track lengths were not too long, because on some Wu-Tang albums, they got like crazy long tracks. And sometimes that can work, like it did with Protect Your Neck. But other times it's just like, making a long track for the sake of it. Whereas on Liquid Swords, they kept the tracks short and snappy. And that really helped the flow of the album, I think there was only like maybe one long track on there, which might have been Fourth Chamber. It was a fairly long track, but not too long. But a lot of tracks only had 2 verses. Cold World was a great track. Yeah, Shadow Boxing with Method Man on it. Labels was a great track. Harold Protagonist says, why Inspector Deck have the hardest verses but the worst albums? Yeah, Inspector Deck always had the hardest verses. Crazy. What'd he say? Thugs kill for drugs, plus the young bucks bust. Ducking handcuffs, throats get cut when dough rush. Out of town foes look shook but still pose. We move like real pros through the streets we stroll. Bullet holes lace the windows in 160. So control the avenues, that's the dream that's sold. Building lobbies or graveyards for small timers. Yeah, And even on that track he did, the feature he did on the Gangstar track, Above the Clouds. Yeah, crazy. I leave scientists mentally scarred, triple extra large, wild like rock stars who smash guitars. Poison bars from the guards, bust holes in your mirage. Catch a charge, shake 'em down like the riot squad. Invade your zone, ruin like ancient Rome. I span the universe and return to earth to claim a throne. The maker, owner, plus soul controller. Ayatollah rest in the sky that clouds my sofa. He went in. Rich Franklin says Purple Tape was fire. Yeah, I like Purple Tape. And I had the Purple Tape too. You know, the purple cassette. Only built for Cuban links. Did I ever listen to DJ Screw? Probably at some point. Samil says Black Thought Freestyle is probably the best ever. It's very subjective. It's very subjective. Me, I prefer Big L's freestyles because they were just funny. Kyle says, Hatman, could you out-rap most of the Wu-Tang? Let me tell you who I think I could out-rap in the Wu-Tang. I reckon I could out-rap RZA, U-God, Master Killer, U-God, RZA, Master Killer. Who else could I out-rap? ODB is, from a technical perspective, easily. But he had charisma and he was crazy and that's what people liked him for. From a technical perspective, yeah, I could out-rap him. 50-50 if I could out-rap Raekwon. Maybe I could out-rap Raekwon. Probably could. Ghost, I reckon I'm a better technical rapper than Ghost, but Ghost has got this charisma and this energy that will be hard to match. Do you know what I mean? Like, Ghost's energy is crazy. And he was very creative with his storytelling rhymes and stuff like that, so I don't want to go as far as Ghost. But I don't know, I reckon I could out-rap half of them. Because as far as guys like Meth, forget about it. I'm not out-rapping Method Man, bro. Do I think Ice Cube is corny? Not back in the days, no. Ice Cube's early albums I thought were good. Favorite diss track of all time would be Beanie Siegel dissing Jadakiss. That's my favorite diss track ever. Because Beans just went in. That diss track was so hard. You broke. Talking about you rocked yourself out. When I see you, you gonna really wish you knocked yourself out. Yeah. My pump make you lift up. Tech make you do a 360. Got gas that the government got. Motherfucker, is you thugging or not? Yo, Beans went crazy on that track. Action Popcast says, do you remember the Wu-Tang PlayStation fighting game? I do. I do remember that. I'm not sure if I ever actually played it, but I remember when it came out. I remember seeing footage of it and stuff like that. Samil says, Hatman, did you enjoy Capadonna's verse on Winter Wars? Yeah, that was a good verse. And his verse was like twice as long as everybody else's verse. That's why they stuck it on last. Do I like Public Enemy? I like some of their tracks. I wasn't like the biggest Public Enemy guy in the world, but you know, some of their tracks were cool. Fight the Power and all that. And they had an iconic sound for a while there, Public Enemy. You know, Chuck D with his powerful kind of conversational rap style. And then Flavor Flav saying, yeah, boy, in the background with a big clock hanging around his neck. Mark Hatch says, modern rap is in a bad place if people think Kendrick is the best. Yeah, I've never really liked Kendrick. I find his voice annoying. There's a couple of Kendrick tracks that I liked. I mean, Swimming Pools was cool. Don't Kill My Vibe, maybe one or two others, but that's about it. He's got a little voice and just an annoying little flow. Just, nah, bro, I can't listen to that. I can't listen to that. Action Popcast says, Hatman, you can pick 3 rap albums and that's all you can listen to for the rest of your life. What are you picking? I don't actually listen to rap these days for the most part. I listen to reggae and soul music from the 70s and stuff like that. But the only rap album that maybe over the past 5-10 years I listened to repeatedly over and over would be MOP Warriors. Yeah, MOP Warriors. But I don't like listening to it too much because it puts me in the wrong kind of mind frame, you know? It puts me in a war mind frame. So yeah, MOP Warriors will be 1. Let's throw Liquid Swords in there as 2. And Heavy Mental 3. I might throw, even though you said 3, I'm going to throw 4 in there anyway. I might throw 36 Chambers in there as well. Damn, Action Popcast says, I stole MOP Warriors from an ex-girlfriend I had in high school. You sound like my little brother. He was always stealing from me. God, it used to drive me insane. It's like, what's wrong with this boy? Is he a kleptomaniac or something? No matter how many beatings I gave him, he keeps stealing my stuff. He wasn't a crackhead. So I don't know what that was all about. All into adulthood, you know. Any opportunity, you just take your stuff. I don't know what his problem was. Action Popcast says, she broke up with me, it was fair. Exactamundo says, saw Kendrick live, big production, but was mediocre. Saw Travis Scott too, and he was awful. You know, I always heard that one of the best live performers in all of hip-hop rap was DMX. I never saw him live, but from the people that I spoke to and heard from and everything, they say DMX was by far the best live performer of all the big rappers. Because if you've ever been to a hip-hop show, a rap show, you'll know that very rarely do they sound the same on stage as they sound on the record, because they're like shouting on the mic and they've got the mic too close to their mouth and muffled, and their voice don't sound the same. Whereas DMX had a way of projecting his voice on record, you know, that gruff tone, and he would project it in the exact same way on stage. And he was very animated and all that kind of thing. And so all the people I heard over the years talk about DMX live performance, they said he was better than anybody. And he sounded exactly the same as on his records. Big up Matt for the super chat. He says, best live performers, Michael Jackson and Prince. Well, yeah, if you're talking about singing, that's a whole different level. Best, we're not talking about singers here, we're talking about rappers. Yeah, you wouldn't put any rapper anywhere near Michael Jackson or Prince. That's just a totally different universe. Now, we were talking in terms of rappers. Rap is not that impressive generally when performed live. It's nowhere near as impressive as singing tends to be. And real musicians, you know, because rappers are not actually musicians. They're like poets, I guess. Whereas Prince is a musician, Michael Jackson's a musician, you know. Yeah, Bob Marley's a musician. Oh, Craig Roche Boxer said he saw DMX in a little club in Cardiff around 2005 or so. He was very good. Afro Jam says DMX had a different energy. He did too. Crazy energy. Mark Hatch says, that Kendrick Super Bowl performance was edited to sound better on YouTube. I watched it live and it was awful. Yeah, everybody said that who watched it live. They said that Kendrick at the Super Bowl sounded terrible. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did indeed do that, you know. After the fact, they're going to edit it and switched up the audio and made it sound good. Osaka Castle says, favorite Bob Marley song. I'll come back to that. Big up Matt for the super chat. He says, I saw Danny Brown live and he passed out on stage. Which musicians actually died on stage? It's got to be like some heavy metal or rock musician that's died on stage. Which musicians have actually died? Because I know there's been some, maybe some famous ones. Well, Fat Man Scoop, was he really a musician? Yeah, hype man. Okay, people are saying Dimebag Darrell. I don't even know who that is. I don't know who it is. Okay, Matt says he was a guitarist for Pantera. Action Popcast says, I was at Reading Festival the year 50 Cent was bottled off stage. Proper annoyed I wanted to see his set. Samil says Eddie Murphy can box, sing, act, and do comedy. That is what his real talent is. He can box? Really? I know R. Kelly can box. Believe it or not. Yeah, R. Kelly's got hands. R. Kelly can box. Don't know about Eddie Murphy. I know Charlie Murphy could fight. Don't know about Eddie. GMS Nightmares talking about a South African rapper died on stage. Harold says R. Kelly needs them hands where he is now. That's a fact. Yeah, Richard Pryor did box a bit. That's right. Fernie G says, I had a friend who was up and coming amateur boxer. He said he realized he wasn't cut out for it when he sparred a well-known pro whose name escapes me. Did you have a similar moment? No, I never had a moment when I thought this ain't for me. No, I never got in there and got bashed up so bad that I thought I needed to quit. Never at all. Never at all. Life outside of the boxing gym and the boxing ring and my own injuries are what curtailed my boxing journey. But no, there was never any incident like that. No. I mean, you know, I took a few beatings and some sparring sessions and whatnot, but nothing that would make me want to give up. We got Matt for the super chat. He says, R. Kelly had a good amateur record. An Olympic? What? He definitely went in the Olympics. Was he in the Olympic box offs? Is that what you meant to say? Did he get that far? Damn. Because I heard he could fight. But I didn't know he was that good. Oh, Matt says he was going to the Olympics. Wow, yeah, I heard he could fight. You know, I remember Fat Joe saying that he actually saw R. Kelly box. And he couldn't believe how good he was. He said, R. Kelly got hands, bro. Yo, R. Kelly was piecing people up. Big up Harold Protagonist for the super chat. He says, a great live tonight. Appreciate it. And I appreciate the super chat, my bro. Big up. Linkage says 50 Cent was in the Golden Gloves. Yeah, it's quite well known. 50 Cent used to box. So did Big Pun. He used to box as well. O'Neal Marston says, Garnet Silk or Bob Marley, who's better Hatman? For me, Bob Marley. But it's subjective, you know. Matt says Liam Neeson was a decorated amateur boxer. Is that right? I didn't know that. Liam Neeson. Okay. I mean, I could see it. I didn't know that. Kyle says, no way could Big Pun box. Yeah, he could, because before he became a rapper, he was actually an athlete. He used to play basketball. Just look up Big Pun when he was young, when he was like, before he was a rapper, before he was famous, and you'll see all the pictures on Google Images of when he was like in shape. He used to play basketball and box and all sorts. I think he was actually semi-pro, Big Pun at one point boxing. So he could box and he could play basketball. This is all before he got fat. Because he wasn't fat all his life. He was an athlete up until he was in his, early 20s? He was an athlete. And what happened is he ran into some serious financial trouble. And I guess he was on the streets hustling, and this, that, and the other. And basically, he bumped into his family lawyer purely by chance. And his family lawyer told him, you remember that incident when you were a kid and that scaffolding fell on you? And he was like, yeah. Well, we just won that case. And this is like, I don't know, 15 years after the fact. 12, 15 years after the fact. And the family lawyer said, I've been trying to get hold of you everywhere. We won the case. We got a big payout. And this would have been in the, I guess, 90s? Early 90s, maybe? And Big Pun got like 250 grand. Now, 250 grand is a lot of money today. Back in the early 90s, think about how much 250 grand could get you, right? In New York back then. It's almost the equivalent of being a millionaire now. So, yeah, he went from hustling on the streets to having this 250 grand or 350 grand, whatever it was, payout. And that's when he started to eat himself into oblivion. That's how Big Pun got fat. Shout out to Matt. He says, I don't know if you know Idris Elba, but he can swap big time. Yeah, Idris Elba's a very famous British actor. And he actually had a kickboxing fight. Yeah, well, I don't think he was a professional kickboxer. He had a kickboxing fight, I think, because it was an ambition of his to have a kickboxing fight. So I remember the kickboxing fight at the time. He also raps. Idris Elba, yeah. Matt says, yes, he was. A professional kickboxer? Are you sure? Okay. I don't remember him being like a fully fledged professional kickboxer, but okay. Matt says he was a professional kickboxer, but he went into acting instead. He had like 30 or 40 fights. Oh, wow, okay. Didn't realize that. Grind says Idris sparred Andrew Tate on YouTube. Oh, you're educating me about Idris Elba's background here. Never knew that. Music Playlist says he squandered all that money before he became a rapper and he was broke again, then made it and got rich again mad. Well, the thing about certain people is they can squander money and it always comes back to them. Certain people are like that. They're like money magnets. That's why they don't care about squandering money. Because they have this magnetism where they'll squander money and it'll just keep coming back. Some people are like that. Big up Solomon for the super chat. He says, Cannabis said that Big Pun had a thyroid disorder. That might explain the random weight gain. The thing is, once you reach that level of obesity, you're going to have all kinds of different disorders. So it might be a matter of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Because the way I understood it in the Big Pun documentary that I saw is that the weight gain coincided with him getting that big payout, that compensation payout from an accident he had as a kid, several $100 grand. And he just kept eating and eating. And his wife was talking about it in the documentary. But that's when he started gaining all the weight, was during that period when he got that money. He said every night they were eating, lobster and pizza and takeouts and going to the nicest restaurants and all this type of business. And he just started ballooning. But big up Solomon for the super chat. Any crypto news, crypto advice, Solomon? Or other investment talk? For those of you who don't know, Solomon's a very, very bright guy. Very shrewd money man. Matt says, maybe I have a thyroid problem. I can't stop eating food. Funny G says, go all in on the Hawk Tour coin, hat man. Has Hawk Tour got a coin? A meme coin? That'd be crazy. I mean, why not, I guess. Trump's got coins, hasn't he? He had a bunch of meme coins. Action Popcar said she had a whole coin scam. Telstar says war stocks are making a killing at the moment. Forgive the pun. Matt says, I'm surprised Trump dumping his coin didn't get more slack. Well, a lot of people predicted that's exactly what he was going to do. But, yeah, people don't want to think that they got hoodwinked by their favorite politician, you know? There are so many scams with crypto. So many. Pump and dumps and all that. Matt says it's fraud in my opinion. Music Playlist says Big Pun and Big L were actually my favorite rappers. I think they were both fantastic rappers. You know, earlier on, somebody asked me if there was ever a moment in my amateur boxing career where I contemplated quitting because somebody beat me up, and there never was. But in my rap career, there definitely was several moments like that. And several times when I thought, no, I just need to quit because the competition of a new rapper coming out was just way too high. The level was too high. And I thought the level was going to keep going up forever, right? But it didn't. So the first time I heard Big Pun, Capital Punishment, because the first time I heard Big Pun was on a Beatnuts song called Off the Books, which is a great track, by the way. Great track. Everybody goes in on that track, other than maybe Psycho Les. But everybody else goes in with the flow. Crazy flow. Like Cuban Link comes on with a crazy flow. Juju of the Beatnuts, he's got a good verse, and then Big Pun just comes in and kills it. So, and it's a great beat as well, Off the Books. Iconic beat. That was the first time I heard Big Pun. And yeah, he was going in. When I heard his album was dropping, I was like, obviously intrigued to hear it, because I knew he was good. But at the same time, I was apprehensive and kind of hoping that he wouldn't be too good. I was hoping he wouldn't be able to keep up that flow and all the punchlines and everything for the entire album, because there's no way I could keep up to that standard. Do you know what I mean? As a rapper myself. So when I heard Capital Punishment, his first album from start to finish, I had mixed emotions. First and foremost, I was blown away by how amazing his rap skills were. But I was also dejected because I knew that I could never be that good. I was like, oh my God. It's as if rap had reached a crescendo in 1998. I think that album came out in 97, 98. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought that the levels were going to keep going up beyond there. But when Big Pun came out with that album, I was like, oh my God, I need to quit now. I need to stop trying to do this rap thing. Just leave it alone. There's Big Pun guys out here. I mean, just look where the levels are at. Yeah, I just need to quit. Let me stop this. But that was back in the days when being a skilled rapper actually mattered. Today, it don't even matter. Today, you don't have to have any skill and you can become a successful rapper. You could just mumble, not even stay on beat. The words barely rhyme. You can sound like you're on lean. Yeah, you can become a big rapper doing that. Whereas back in the 90s, you had to have skills or nobody would respect you. And you just wouldn't get to the next level. But yeah, Big Pun made me want to quit. He made me want to quit. Shout out to Matt for the super chat. He says, have you ever watched Dexter? Show re-released, it's good. I haven't watched it. I know what it's about. He's a serial killer. Is he like a doctor or something? And he's a serial killer, or a detective that's a serial killer? So I'm aware of the show, and I have been for many years, but no, I've never really gotten into it. Shout out to Matt for the super chat. Shout out to James Clifford for the super chat. He says, late to the live. Hope you had a good one, guys. I'm driving up the M1 back to Milton Keynes. Have a great weekend, everyone, and get the likes up. Big up James Clifford each and every time. Never knew you were from Milton Keynes. Big up the Milton Keynes crew. A lot of Zimbabweans in Milton Keynes. Telstar says, today being a producer is where the skill is at. That's a whole fact. Music playlist says, first Big Pun track I heard was Boomerang. Yeah, that's on Capital Punishment. The original version of Boomerang had a different beat. I think, was it Boomerang that had a different beat? Or was it no, maybe it was Dream Shatterer. I think Dream Shatterer had a different beat originally. The version of the album is not the original beat. Dream Shatterer is another great track, where Big Pun's just going in. Exactamundo says, anyone else here from Cumbria? What is that like old, I don't even want to call it English. There's some kind of like old dialect that they used to speak in Cumbria, which might be extinct now. But I remember in the 80s and the 90s hearing about this like antiquated dialect that they had in Cumbria. I can't remember what they called it. I think it's like a very, very old, from centuries ago dialect. Afro Gem says, what's my opinion on the reason for the decline in rap? Oversaturation is one of the big reasons. There are too many rappers now. Too many rappers. And because there are so many rappers, and the standards are so low now in terms of ability, people just copy others and everyone sounds the same, you know? So oversaturation has led to a degradation in the overall quality, you know? And now, as somebody else said, it's really all about producing. That's where the skill lies, is in the production, not in the actual rapping. Exactamundo says Yaka. Is that what it was called? Yaka, or just Cumbrian? I still speak it, but it's more like patois than a language now. Yeah, nowadays, backstory through social media and stuff like that is what draws people in and makes them want to follow you as an artist. It's more so about your overall story, your life story. I mean, it always was that to some extent, even back in the days, but there was no social media in the 90s. So you'd often be introduced to rappers on the radio or on mixtapes before you'd ever seen them, you know? There was no accompanying video to a lot of their music. You just hear a voice. And that's one of the reasons why rappers back then would concentrate on having a distinctive voice. because in a lot of cases, there's going to be no video for most of their tracks. Yeah? So they're trying to stand out without the aid of music videos. So they had to make their voice as unique as possible. Whereas today, the rappers don't bother trying to do that. Big up Liam in Chains, Rastafari. Carlton Palmer says, don't really listen to any US rap these days. So you listen to UK rap? Okay, Exactamundo says Yaka means farmer, so some folk call it that. It's a mix of Celtic Gaelic and old Viking words. Triple R says, why did you compare yourself to Big Pun? Wouldn't it make more sense comparing yourself to the guys of the UK scene, assuming you wasn't rapping like an American? No, I wasn't rapping like an American, but I just wanted to compare myself to the best. The UK scene wasn't great in the 90s. Do you know what I mean? So they weren't even close to the level of the best American rappers. So I wasn't trying to compare myself to just average rappers. I was trying to compare myself to the best, and I felt like skill-wise and flow-wise, I was up there. I was keeping up with whoever the best was. That's how I felt up until Pun came out. I mean, I was having to up my game all the time when different rappers, this rapper come out, that rapper come out. I was like, oh God, I'm just about keeping up here. But when Big Pun came out, I was like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. let me just quit now. Let me just quit. This guy, dear oh dear. How can he be this good? All the way through an album. The album was long as well. It had like 17, 18 tracks on it or something. Maybe more than that. And he was going in on every track. The flow was crazy. The punchlines, the similes, the metaphors, the charisma, everything. Even the skits were hilarious. Packing a mac in the back of the act, packing a mac in the back of the act, packing a mac in the back of the act, packing a mac in the back, packing a mac in the back. You guys remember that skit? Lehman James says, ever listened to Brain Tax in that era of UK rap? Yeah, I was never a fan of all that. The UK backpacker raps, like rappers like Brain Tax and all them kind of guys, was never really into that stuff. Of the 90s era, the UK rappers I liked were like London Posse, Rodney P and Bionic. Bit of Roots Maneuver and a bit of Black Twang, but Black Twang's music really hasn't aged. I wouldn't listen to Black Twang now, even the old stuff. But at the time I was like, Black Twang's cool. Skinny Man at one point was cool, but I never really saw them as anything to look up to or aspire to be like. I'd probably say my favorite rapper, UK rapper from that era, would have been Rodney P. Harold Protagonist says, must be mad disheartening trying to compete with Pun. Yeah, impossibly disheartening. Lincoln says, when did Kalashnikov come out? Would have been early 2000s when Kalashnikov came out. Early 2000s. And it's a shame that he never remastered the Sagas, his debut album, because the bars on the Sagas were all fire. Every single track, fire. But the production was, it's not that the sounds, the vibe of the beats was bad. They were just poorly mixed. I don't know who the hell mixed that album, but it was obviously done on the cheap or on the free. Because it was a horribly, horribly mixed budget album in terms of, the mixing and mastering of the production. It was horrible. It's a shame they can't redo that. Because the production, the mixing and mastering didn't do Kalashnikov's performances on the songs justice. B&H says Pharoah Monch. Pharoah Monch is okay. I was never a big fan of him. He was alright. Cotton Palmer says, yep, more UK rap grime. Was into UK drill for a bit, but I'm too old to be listening to how Utes are chefing each other up. Yeah, me too. I'm not really into drill. Yeah, I was aware of Chester P and Task Force and all that. They would rap with Skinny Man, but again, I was never really into those guys like that. Rap and BS podcast says not Bionic, as in Bionic from London Posse. I prefer Rodney P to Bionic. Bionic just made me laugh, He had like a mad Cockney twang, and I found his lyrics hilarious. Just found his whole rap style hilarious. Music playlist says, check out Jizza Living in the World Today. Come on, bro. I know Liquid Swords back to front. My preliminary attack leaves cemeteries packed. That's from Living in the World Today. But only raise your hands if you're sure. Punk ninjas shatter like a glass jaw. Grime says, what are your thoughts on the Afro grime era in UK music? I don't even know what that is. Afro grime? TM says, the Liquid Swords artwork is insanely cool. Got it on a t-shirt. Well, the Wu-Tang album artwork up until Wu-Tang Forever was all fire. Every single album cover from 36 Chambers through to Iron Man. Every album cover was fire. Very creative. So 36 Chambers obviously was like the Kung Fu chessboard, faces covered, mysterious. And the album reflected the sound, that the album art reflected the sound of the music, It's like sometimes you'll get an album, and you look at the cover and you expect it to sound a certain way, and then you play it and it doesn't sound anything like that. Whereas the Wu-Tang, with the artists and the photographers and everything that they used, they were able to basically visually show you how the album was going to sound just by the cover. So 36 Chambers had that like chessboard, faces covered, Kung Fu style, grimy because they're all in hoodies and that. Then the next album was Return to the 36 Chambers. Or was it Method Man's album? Maybe it was Method Man's album that came next. Tikal. Actually, that album artwork was pretty dead, to be fair. So let me just remix it a little bit. The Tikal album artwork was dead. But then Return to the 36 Chambers ODB, where he had himself on a government ID for food stamps. And that told you what the album was going to sound like, right? And then after that, 36 Chambers, again, where it's got that, comic book thing with the genius on it, cutting somebody with a knife, and again, the chessboard and fighting in the background and all that. That was an elite album cover, the cartoon comic book look. Then Cuban Links with Ray and Ghost on the front, looking like mafioso. And then after that, you had Ghostface Iron Man with the Wallaby Clarks on the cover with Capadonna. A very colorful, total massive change from the other Wu-Tang album covers, right? Because they were all like dark and sinister, or even, mafioso looking like Purple Tape. But Iron Man was all colorful. Rap says Demon Boys Hijack. Yeah, I remember them. They had their little 2 minutes of fame. The Brotherhood was another UK rap crew back in the days. The Brotherhood, Demon Boys Hijack. Yep. Silver Bullet. That's very, very early stuff. Late 80s, early 90s. MF Doom. I like MF Doom's production. One or two of his tracks, you know. Was it the first single he released was Dead Bent and Hey? Hey was on one side and I think was Dead Bent the A side and Hey was the B side. O'Neal says D.E. is the best grime rapper after Wiley. Well, D.E. is my favorite grime artist after Kano because D.E. is just hilarious. I don't know if he even intends to be hilarious, but he is hilarious. And that's one of the things I liked about grime is there was a comedy element to it because they had artists like Bearman, Bruiser, you know? There was this comedy element to grime, which I personally liked. And D.E., as much as he talks badman, you know, chats badman lyrics, the guy is hilarious, bro. He looks funny. He sounds funny. His style is funny. His bars are funny. Vader D says, Pun Leatherface underrated track. I didn't really like that track. Pun was very, very ill when he made the album, and you can hear it in his voice. His flow wasn't the same. He had like doubled in weight. For the first album, he was 350 pounds. For the second album, he might have been 600 pounds. You know what I mean? So you could hear it in his voice. He was really struggling. In fact, I think did he die before the album got released? And it was released posthumously? I forget now, but yeah, he was very, very ill making the album. You could hear it. The flow weren't there, and he sounded muffled on a lot of the tracks, you know? The tracks I liked off Yeah Baby, because it was nowhere near as good as Capital Punishment. The tracks I liked off Yeah Baby were obviously 100%, because that's a Puerto Rican anthem. The beat was fire, and Pun put on a good performance on that track, 100%. It's So Hard, another fire beat and a vibe. So It's So Hard and 100%, they were like the two singles. Other than that, I would say, what's the one with, what's that track called? Off With His Head. Yeah, Off With His Head is a good track. I like Off With His Head. Anthony YouTube says 93 Till Infinity is probably my favorite hip hop track. Gives me a nostalgic feel. Well, yeah, there was a dreamy feeling to that whole De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, leaders of the new school era. When those guys first came out, it was like you were in a dream, you know? And it was kind of a golden, they called it the Daisy Age in hip hop. And yeah, there was something very nostalgic about the beats, the sound of everything. And, you know, Spike Lee movies like Do the Right Thing were coming out around them times. And there was a whole vibe associated with that. The Native Tongues, they call themselves as a collective, the Native Tongues. I was searching for the word there, or the name there. But yeah, songs like Can I Kick It, very nostalgic. Even Pete Rock and CL Smooth, Troy, they reminisce over you. Whenever I hear that, I just get mad nostalgic. When that horn riff plays, you know? It just instantly transports you back to the early 90s. Yeah, fight the power, don't believe the hype, Public Enemy, that's right. Yeah, I like Tribe Called Quest, very eclectic. You know, like De La Soul. I had no idea what De La Soul were talking about most of the time when they were rapping. You know, like their first album, 3 Feet High and Rising, I had no idea what they were talking about in the rhymes. I just knew that they had a vibe and it was nice. But what they were actually saying, yeah, baffled me. That's right, Jimbo Jones. If it's me you're mad at, you'll get a scar on your chest like Sagat. Street fighting, that's what I'm bad at. My thing's working perfect. I come through with a beat up under, give man 100 slaps just like he under. Funny G says Camp Low. Yeah, Camp Low. The first album was crazy, bro. Like, they took that 1960s vibe and turned it into a rap thing, and it was crazy. Lucchini, and I mean, yeah, crazy. Crazy. The first album was called Uptown Saturday Night, and he had tracks on there like Lucchini, Swing, Black Nostalgic, and all that, yeah. Big up Devin in the chat. Gangstar, I mean, you know, Guru, not a great rapper, truth be told. But Primo, obviously, an amazing producer. Coolie High, yeah, that's another one from Camp Low on their first album. The album was fire from start to finish. You know? Start to finish. And their rhymes were crazy as well. I had to listen over and over again to try and decipher what on earth Camp Low were talking about. Introducing Phantom of the Dark, walk through my heaven with levitation from Reefer. Drenching divas in E7, showboating with Rugas, Flash Vines, Belafonte Vigor. Let's skate for what it's worth as we confiscate your figures. Casanova Brown, levitating Jiggy and Dashiki's out at a car. 54, chasing diamond runners headed icebound. I mean, what are these men talking about, bro? If you actually slow it down and listen, yeah, it sounds fire. You got no idea what they're saying, but it sounds fire. If you slow it down and listen, you can start to decipher some of the stuff they're saying. But it takes some thinking about. It takes some thinking about, bro. But I loved, which one is which? Sonny Chiba and Geechee. Is it Geechee Sweet or Sonny Chiba? The one with the toothpick in his mouth. He was the better one, yeah? Even though he wasn't rhyming a lot of the time, his flow was still crazy. His voice was like soulful and literally from the 60s. And his whole vibe was like some 60s pimp guy, and yeah, mad. So think about them lyrics on Lucchini when whichever one it is, Sonny Chiba or Geechee Sweat. I want to say it's Sonny Chiba. And he comes in and says, introducing Phantom of the Dark, walk through my heaven with levitation from Reefer. Well, you understand that one. drenching divas in E7, showboating with Ruger's flash vines. Vines are like suits, right? Belafonte, Jigga. Let's skate for what it's worth as we confiscate your fit, because they're playing this like diamond crooks persona in the song. And on that whole album, they were like diamond crooks. So when you slow it down, you're like, okay, I get what they're saying. For some of their bars anyway. Yeah, I like Jeru the Damaja too. I like Jeru the Damaja. Yep. Big up Long John Silver. Some of my favorite Jeru the Damaja tracks would be Me or the Papes. The BICTHES's. I'll spell it out. What other? Come Clean, Pause. Revenge of the Prophet. And of course, You're Playing Yourself. You're Playing Yourself, easily one of Jeru the Damaja's best tracks. Great video as well. Great beat, primo beat, funky as hell. Like, a lot of Jeru the Damaja's tracks have aged very well. You know, because some stuff from the 90s doesn't age well. Especially the more underground rappers. But a lot of Jeru's music has aged very well. If you listen to You're Playing Yourself now, it's just as relevant as it was then. And even though his style is kind of like an old school style, it's still easy to listen to, I think. Telstar says Survival of the Fittest beat. Yeah, them old Havoc beats were crazy. That was a whole vibe as well. A very dark vibe. You know, I was once in that world, man, and that was the sound of that world. Like, if you listen to Mobb Deep, the infamous album, right? Their second album. The first album was called Juvenile Hell. Nobody really listened to that one. That was the first album. The second album was called The Infamous. And that whole album had a sinking feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like that whole vibe is exactly what it felt like being a roadman, a street youth, getting deeper and deeper into the underworld, and now you can't escape. And you're just sinking and the walls are closing in around you. That's what that album sounded like. The skies are gray and everything's just going wrong. The album sounded like that. It was almost a nihilistic kind of vibe to it. You know, this is a very dark album. Lincoln says, do you ever listen to Black Star? Yeah, the Black Star album was good. Astronomy. Is it called Astronomy or Mathematics? I forget the name of the track now. Also, the remix of, what's that one called now? So much on my mind, I just can't decline, just can't recline. Sunshine, breathing. Respiration, that's what it's called, yeah. The Respiration remix with Black Thought, fire. Better than the original. The original, it just got Mos Def and Talib Kweli on it. But the remix with Black Thought, I love the beat. And I love the rhymes on there. Yeah, there you go. See, Telstar knows what I'm talking about. The last track called Party Over. Party Over was a perfect ending track because it encapsulated the vibe of the whole album. Party Over literally sounds like you're sinking. You know the way the beat is? It's got some like murky, muddy bass line and it's like do do do. It's like you're literally sinking into the underworld on Party Over. You're sinking into the underworld, bro. That album was so dark. That's right, Solomon. Yes, the Respiration remix was produced by Pete Rock. That's correct. It had beautiful piano on it. Yeah, I love that beat. Believe it or not, originally, they wanted to get Outcast on it, but Outcast said they didn't like the beat. So they ended up having Black Thought on it instead. Outcast wouldn't have gone well on that beat, man. I don't know whose idea it was to get Outcast on that. Black Thought killed it. Bone Thugs and Harmony. I mean, they're very creative in the style that they had, you know, the singing, rapping. Pioneers in that style. I appreciate the artistry, but I wasn't really listening to them like that. Wasaka Castle says, thoughts on Outcast? Outcast, very, very creative. I like some of their tracks. Other tracks are a bit weird for me, but yeah, very creative. Miss Jackson and many other hits that they came out with. In fact, my favorite Outkast track is Bombs Over Baghdad. Bombs over Baghdad. Bombs over Baghdad. Yeah, that's it. B.O.B. Bombs Over Baghdad. That's the track I'm talking about. Osaka Castle. Don't pull your thing out unless you plan to bang. Bombs over Baghdad. Don't even bang unless you plan to hit something. Bombs over Baghdad. Yeah, the first album was critically acclaimed in the industry and among more serious rap fans, but hang on, which was the first? Was the first one Atlanteans, ATL Atlanteans? Was that the first album? And then the other one, I always mess up the pronunciation of it, Aquamini, was that the second? And then the third would have been, what was the third album called? Was it Stankonia? What was the name of the third album? The one where they really blew up, that had Bombs Over Baghdad and Miss Jackson. What was the name of that album? ATLians. Is that? Oh yeah, ATLians. I meant as me calling it Atlanteans. ATLians. Okay, yeah, Southern play that. Yeah, with the ridiculously long name, Lucan. Okay, yeah, the Southern playalistic thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember that one now. Yeah. Yeah, I got a lot of respect for Outkast because they were really, you know, eclectic and very artistic and talented and different at a time when most rappers down south were just diabolically rubbish. You know what I mean? Most down south rappers, when Outkast first started making albums and whatnot, were just unbelievably trash. So Outkast stood out in the sense that they were actually trying to be skillful, they're trying to be creative, they were trying to, you know, up the levels down south. Ghetto Boys, okay, yeah, Scarface was good. And the midget, what was the midget called in Scarface? The midget called in Ghetto Boys? What's the midget's name? Fernie G says, was Hammer and Vanilla Ice big in the UK? Yeah, they were big worldwide. They were like pop artists, you know? Or like pop music. MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice. Yeah, the midget died. I remember Bushwick Bill. There you go. Bushwick Bill. Apparently he used to fight Bushwick Bill. Bushwick Bill. Ed Ellaby says, where can we check out your music? The link is in the description. It's on Rumble. It's free to watch. The track's on there. The link's in the description. Why am I forgetting the name of the singer from Ghetto Boys, who was also in Gnarls Barkley? How can I forget his name? What's his name? No, not Willie D. What is man's name? How have I forgotten his name? I'm gonna look it up now because I can't remember. I can't believe I've forgotten his name. I know somebody's gonna mention it in the chat while I hang on, he's not in, who the hell, what was he from then? What group was he from? The singer I'm thinking about. Willie D, Scarface, Bushwick Bill. Yeah, they're in Ghetto Boys. Who's the singer I'm thinking about? What's he from? Oh no, he's from Goodie Mob. Oh my God, I'm thinking about Goodie Mob, not... Yeah, Goodie Mob. CeeLo Green from Goodie Mob. I'm getting them mixed up here. Yeah, not Ghetto Boys. Goodie Mob. CeeLo Green. Another down south crew. The Goodie Mob. Always liked CeeLo's voice, you know? And the tracks he did with Danger Mouse in Gnarls Barkley. Big up Cloud. What's up, what's up? Anthony YouTube says, Fight Hype just dropped a vid with Crawford. He looks noticeably bigger, even the size of his head. Long John says, do you use Ableton Live? No, I don't. I trialed it and I just never stuck with it. The song Crazy is an all-time pop classic. For me, it's just a classic full stop. Whatever genre you want to give it or put it in, it's a classic track. Crazy is a great track. Just a great music track. Even, is it Smiley Faces? It's a great track too. Music playlist says when you put weight on, your head does get bigger. Well, it gets wider. Yeah, the face gets bigger when you put weight on, for sure. Osaka Castle talking about KRS-One. Yeah, I always liked KRS-One as a rapper. I always thought he was good because he had a very, very strong presence on every track. Very, very strong presence. Even if his rhymes weren't always hitting the mark, he had a very powerful voice and he had a unique delivery. And he just had a very, very strong presence. That's what I can say about KRS-One. Very strong presence. A lot of charisma, I guess you could say. Osaka Castle says he was lyrically conscious. Well, yeah, after Scott LaRock died, he became lyrically conscious. Not so much before then. What MIDI controller do I use? Just a little one. It's a Korg Micro Key Air. Music playlist says Can't Stop, Won't Stop is my favorite KRS-One. I liked, what did I like from KRS-One? Sound of the Police, of course, that's a classic. That used to be a classic at Carnival. That used to be a Carnival. How can I describe it? A Carnival favorite. Yeah? Sound of the Police. What other KRS-One do I like? You Must Learn, or You Will Learn. Is it called You Must Learn or You Will Learn? Like that one. Shout out to Jay for the super chat. He says, do you rate Michael B. Jordan as an actor? He's all right. He's not one of my favorite actors or anything, but, you know, he's cool. I wouldn't say he's rubbish. What do you think of Michael B. Jordan? He's all right. Last Michael B. Jordan film I saw was Sinners. He was cool in that. I've always just found Michael B. Jordan to be okay, but nothing exceptional. Do you know what I mean? Just cool. The last time I went Carnival. Actually wasn't, well, when I say it wasn't that long ago, I mean, I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who's middle-aged, right? Somebody of my age, 10 years ago is not that long ago. Do you know what I mean? But no, the last time I went Carnival, I think might have been 2018. Might have been 2018. We're talking about 7 years ago. All right, Dr. Wu likes KRS-One's track called Friends. Yep, I know that song. I think that's the B-side to MCs Act Like They Don't Know. Could be wrong, but I reckon that's the B-side to MCs Act Like They Don't Know. Another, the B-side to Sound of the Police had a wicked beat. What was that song called? Rappers Are in Danger. In fact, no. I think Sound of the Police was the B-side. Rappers Are in Danger. That beat is fire. You know the KRS-One track, Rappers Are in Danger? That beat is fire, bro. Absolute fire. Carlton Palmer says he was great in The Wire. Was Michael B. Jordan in The Wire? I didn't like The Wire. I was horribly distracted by Idris Elba and the other English actors' horrible American accents. I couldn't do it. Their accents were horrible. I kept hearing the English come through constantly. It just jarred me. I couldn't do it. And I'm not that interested in watching a series all about drug dealers for episode after episode after episode and season after season. It just don't interest me that much. If it was like a short series, you know, like the original Top Boy, where it was only like 4 episodes or something, I could have done it. But where it's like however many episodes The Wire is per season, 15 episodes, I'm like, nah, bro. Drug dealing is not this interesting. Drug dealing is not this interesting, mate. No, I didn't like it. Carlton Palmer, didn't like it at all. But it was boring as hell. And I gave it a go, but no, didn't like it at all. Carlton Palmer says, last time I went Carnival, I got stuck in a huge crush of people on the way home, never again. Yeah, Carnival's nasty. That's all I can tell you. Carnival is nasty. GMS Nightmare says, what do you love most about living outside the UK? The weather. And feminine women. Not that there aren't any feminine women in the UK, but you know, in the urban centers, in the cities, definitely in the black community, you're going to struggle to find feminine women. Whereas in the developing world, for the most part, that issue is not there. I'm surprised it took so long for my YouTube tab to crash, my YouTube Studio tab to crash. It's finally done it. Let's refresh here. Hold tight in case anyone's sending messages in the chat, which I'm not yet reading. There we go. We're refreshed. Carlton Palmer says, it was so much more than drug dealing. There was so much more depth to it. Hardly, bro. What, some politicians and corrupt police? I mean, that's just par for the course with drug dealing. Yeah? Drug dealing always involves politicians and corrupt police. It's just like normal standard fare, isn't it? In movies about drug dealing or series about, it's just standard. You're going to need politicians and police involved. Anthony YouTube says, I almost got into a fight last time I went Carnival. Wouldn't advise ever going Carnival with a girl. I was so bored by The Wire. I was skipping through most of the episodes, you know. So much just boring exposition, and I was skipping through this part, and then I just watched certain scenes and then skip through and then watch other. I was just, this is so boring, bro. And eventually I skipped all the way through to where Stringer Bell gets killed. I was like, is that it? Okay. I didn't watch any of it after Stringer Bell got killed. I was like, man, this is dead. Breaking Bad, I thought the first 2 seasons were cool. After that, it was just a bunch of filler. And I skipped through a lot of Breaking Bad. Was Gus Fring in the first 2 seasons? I saw all the Gus Fring stuff, but I skipped through a lot of it until it got to the moment that everybody's waiting for, which is when Hank figures out that Walter is Heisenberg. You know, the scene in the garage. So I thought, I'll say this, Breaking Bad's a hell of a lot better than The Wire. Breaking Bad is many, many, many times better than The Wire. But, yeah, it was still, How interesting is drug? I mean, to some people they're interested, but to me, drug dealing is not that flipping interesting. Do you know what I mean? To make seasons and seasons and episodes about. To me, the subject matter is just not that interesting. All right, peeps, as everyone seems to have retired to their sleeping quarters, I'm going to shut this one down. I'd like to shout out each and every one of you for joining the conversation, and a special shout out to those who donated via Super Chat. They are Anthony YouTube, GMS Nightmare, Josh Padley, or Petty, excuse me. Did I call him Josh Padley? That's the boxer. Josh Petty, Jelly Mold, James Wood, Matt Borgerson, of course, Gaz, George the Last Patriot, Harold Protagonist, Solomon, big up Solomon, James Clifford, Jay, Lawrence King, Moros Man, Kayvon Green. Big up, big up. Until next time, take care, be good. Catch you on the other side. I'm out.